We've just been in the Green conference and now we're going to go and see the Workers' Party conference, just around the corner. It's not very far, it's probably about 10 minutes walk, so we'll find out what they say about the Greens and what they think about unity.
And Keir Starmer, his lickspittle of imperialism now rewards Modi's fascist regime as it escalates attacks on Pakistan. Trade deals drenched in Kashmiri and Pakistani blood. Starmer's Labour, complicit in Hindu supremacist butchering, selling out workers for a seat at the oligarchs' table.
We're outside Bolivar Hall, where the Workers' Party have had a conference celebrating the 80 years since the victory over the Nazis, including ambassadors from Russia and China and other countries that have been kind of cold-shouldered by the West in their celebrations of the 80 years since the war and victory in Europe.
I'll say, well, if you're environmentalists, how can you advocate for the war that's going on in Ukraine and all the toxic waste that's coming out of there and the pollution that's produced from that war, yet you will stand by, and legitimately by, the Palestinians, and you march and disrupt everything there, which is great, but are anti-Russian. We've just been to a meeting now where we heard that 27 million people, Russian people, fought and died for our liberty. We lost thousands, hundreds of thousands, and God bless them. My uncle, my granddad, what have you, were all in the wars. You can't pick and choose your wars. You've got to come together because it's us, the working class, that actually will make a difference to this, not only this country, but to the world. We're all working class, regardless if you're in Russia, China, Venezuela, or the UK. At the end of the day, we get the brunt of the problems. And in this country, which is like the 5th or 6th richest country in the world, why in God's name aren't the working class all coming together and telling these bunch of idiots who are making millions and billions off the backs of us, and we are dying. Record numbers of people are dying in this country because of poverty, because of poor quality housing, and because of ignorance and incompetence. And we've had that since I was alive. I've got no beef with the Greens, literally, right? The people, the foot soldiers of the Greens. I just think they're being led by establishment. I'll just say it, all right?
We've just been at the Green Party little London conference to hear what they've got to say about how we unite the left and also how we can defeat reform. They think that they're moving more to the left, that they can change the Greens to be a more socialist party. Why would you not think that that was the way forward?
First of all, I think they need to sort of check their sort of moral compass on their position on NATO. Just because you believe in peace and harmony when it comes to the ozone layer and things, that doesn't make you a peace-loving political party. We've just had a fantastic gathering here today to commemorate the 80th anniversary of Europe's victory. And I think what's come across very clearly is that those people that feel that they are some kind of leaders when it comes to peace and justice and harmony, in fact, we are the only true party that is doing that. The Workers' Party is a left party. It believes in true socialism. And the Greens and the Tories and Labour and the rest of them, the Tories and Labour don't even pretend to be so anymore. I think Greens are still trying to hold on to that sort of political rhetoric.
You've just mentioned that the Greens would, like some people in the Greens are saying, they can turn their party into a socialist party standing for working people. I'd wish them, those people that want to see that, I would wish them good luck with it. I think they'll need it probably. But there are a lot of good people in the Green Party, and where I live in South London, very near to me, I was very pleased that there was a by-election in Lambeth in Lambeth Council recently in Loughborough Junction ward, and it was great to see the Green Party candidate who stood on a left-wing platform win and defeat Starmer's Labour Party. We're in a position of a slow recomposition of working class politics in this country, and what final form that will take, I don't think anyone can tell at the moment, but it will involve all sorts of apparently disparate forces coming together, and there'll be processes of splits and realignments. Unfortunately, there still seem to be more splits than realignments, and I hope people can, find a way to get through that. And I'm sure there are many people in the Green Party who will play a positive role in that process. What's very important is to hammer out some kind of common minimum programme, and people need to leave some of their old disputes and disagreements at the door, not to give up their individual points of view, but to realise that the trouble with wanting a realignment of the left around everything that you agree with is that everybody else wants the same thing too. And there has to be some kind of element of cooperation and goodwill. And I don't think you have to agree with all the policies of the Workers' Party to see that it's, as left-wing forces in this country go, it's a serious political force. It's scored some achievements which other parties and organisations to the left of Labour haven't succeeded in doing. And I think that the Workers' Party and the left-wing forces in the Green Party both have a role to play in rebuilding the left. But people have to be prepared to talk to each other, not necessarily to agree, but to agree on the things that they can agree on. All of us want desperately to see an end to the genocide against the Palestinian people. We want to reverse the attacks that the Starmer government is making on working people. I think we have to focus on some of those issues.
Well, I'm joined by Chris Williamson. Thank you for coming on the call, Chris.
Thanks, Crispin. Good to be here.
Look, there's a lot of issues raised there. Now, yeah, I mean, the Greens and the Workers' Party, at the end, he was saying you've got to drop some of your stuff, your baggage, and just get onto what you agree with on stuff. But there's a lot of attacks on the Workers' Party recently for some of the slogans. Like one of the elections was saying, "Stop the boats, stop the wars." And this guy said before that he can't be in anything to do with the Workers' Party because of the policy on LGBT. What would you say about those two particular issues?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that, I mean, as Ken Loach was saying in his conversation with you earlier, Crispin, that we have to grasp this nettle of immigration. And I think the Workers' Party have tried to come forward with a common sense socialist proposition in relation to immigration, because irrespective of what our view might be, there is a lot of concern. Much of it, some of it is justifiable. But what we're saying is, look, let's deal with the reason why desperate people get in boats to seek refuge in a foreign country in the first place. And the British establishment, the British war machine, is largely culpable for that. So what we're saying is, if you want to stop the boats, stop the wars, stop the arms sales, and stop the sanctions which are targeted at populations to deliberately impoverish them, actually creating that desperation in the first place. And what I always say to people on the doorstep, and used to say this when I was in the Labour Party as well, when I come across somebody who would complain about asylum seekers, is to say, look, mate, you've got more in common with the asylum seekers that you're complaining about than you have with the people at the top of society, because it's the people at the top of society, in the war machine, in the military industrial complex, in these corporate capitalist organisations, which are exploiting people in this country, leading to 14.5 million people living in poverty in Britain, the 6th biggest economy in the world, are the self-same people that are responsible for the wars, the arms sales, and the sanctions that are creating the desperation in those countries which lead people to come here in the first place.
I'm just confused about the Green and Workers' Party thing. It seems like there's no way of the two getting on, but they are one of the two largest probably the two largest parties of what we call the left. Some in the Workers' Party would say the Greens aren't left. I don't even want to go into that because that'd just be a big fight. And then I think some in the Greens would say the Workers' Party aren't on the left. I mean, that's the other thing. That's a real gulf there. But then I have to address the result in Runcorn, which was really disappointing because I did speak to Peter Ford before it, and I wanted to promote his campaign, as I think we should do before everyone who stands against Starmer. We should all promote them, whatever our party are on the left, I believe, anyway. But he didn't do particularly well. Are there any reasons why you think that was?
It was a very poor result. We have to be honest about that. I mean, it wasn't the sort of constituency necessarily where the Workers' Party has done well in the past. It's a constituency, though, where I would like to think the Workers' Party could do well in the future. Look, we're still a small acorn. We didn't have sufficient volunteers on the ground. There was a blackout of the Workers' Party candidate, Peter Ford. He was excluded, as we were excluded on a national basis as well. I'm not saying that, had we got more coverage in the mainstream media, that we would have stormed to a incredible victory, but we may have got a few more votes there. We need to build the party. We need more activists on the ground, and we need to stop this sniping, it seems to me, which is very, very unhelpful. And I think one of the things, for me, I think, Crispin, what we on the left need to be focused on now is on class politics, is on economic inequality, and part of the kind of identity politics and the culture wars, because that turns people off, and you're not going to win the sort of mass support if you are constantly, exercised about LGBT rights. I mean, people going about George. I mean, George was given a Stonewall Award for his work in Parliament in standing up for gay rights. But look, George is the leader of the party. He's a big figure, of course he is. But George isn't the party. The party is made up of thousands of individuals. And so that, for me, Crispin, is we've got to focus on the economy. We've got to focus on economic inequality, in my opinion. And I mean, Ken was talking about, answering the difficult question about how do we pay for it? Well, there's a very simple way how we pay for it, because we are a currency issuing nation. We have that flexibility, and we're not subject to the gold standard as we used to be. We're no longer linked to the dollar as we used to be under the Bretton Woods Agreement after the Second World War, which was ditched by Richard Nixon in 1971. And so I think we've got a very clear way of explaining, how we could afford to create a good society. And as Tony Benn used to say, if we can find the money to kill people, we can find the money to help people. And the other thing I'd say, Crispin, as well, is we need to be not overly panicked by reform. Yes, of course, they're on an upward trajectory, but still the vast majority of people didn't vote in the last election, and certainly in these local elections. So there's a lot of people out there who are just pissed off with all politicians. So we need to be focusing on them and giving people, it seems to me, a reason to vote, but also not to write off the reform voters. Just as Jeremy said when he stood for the leadership in 2015 of the Labour Party, to not write off the UKIP voters. He's saying that many of them voted UKIP out of desperation. People are voting for reform out of desperation, often because they don't realise there are these alternatives. They don't know about the Workers' Party. But let's expose reform on immigration, because they claim, that's their main raison d'etre about immigration. But they support the imperialist wars. They support the sanctions. They support the arms sales. They support the circumstances which actually create the immigration which they are complaining about. Let's expose them on the National Health Service. They've said they've been on record in the past as supporting an insurance-based health system similar to the United States. And let's expose them on the economy as well, Crispin. They had a ridiculous bill before Parliament. What was it called? The quantitative easing prohibition bill, I think it was called. Basically, they wanted to stop the government having the ability to create money and to go back onto the gold standard. I mean, it's absurd. When Britain was on the gold standard back in the 1930s, it still had a supply of gold from South Africa, because South Africa still fell within the orbit of the British Empire. It's an absolutely ludicrous proposition. So they are a bunch of phonies. They're led by merchant bankers and property developers, multimillionaires, masquerading as champions of the working class when they are actually pillars of the establishment. So I think we do that. we focus on the economy. We partly kind of obsession with identity politics, and take a leaf out of Fred Hampton's book. Remember what Fred Hampton said. He said, you don't fight fire with fire, you fight fire with water. You don't fight racism with black racism, you fight it with solidarity. And you don't fight capitalism with black capitalism, you fight it with socialism. And that's the sort of thing I think that we need to be, holding dear to our heart. Fred Hampton, the famous Black Panther who was assassinated by the US state when he was the tender age, I think, of just 21 years. But that's a sort of approach that we need. And, look at what they've achieved in France, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, where they brought the left together. Look, there's plenty of things in the Green Party that I would agree with. I'm sure there's plenty of things that people who are in the Green Party would agree with where the Workers' Party is at. But if we're serious about challenging the rise of reform, if we're serious about building a common sense socialist alternative, then we've got to make a few of these compromises and start collaborating and working together, it seems to me. And unless we do that, we are finished. But don't rule out, in conclusion, Crispin, don't rule out the role of the state in actually dividing the left, because it's in their interest, isn't it, to smash the left through divide and rule tactics. And, I've often said the British Empire was the most successful empire in the world because it was past masters at divide and rule. And they're using those same tactics on us. Don't fall for it.
That's right. That's right. You can't help thinking, look how Starmer's got in so easily. It's just that it's all done from some deep state thing we're talking to other people about. I mean, anyway, I don't want to go into that. That's another story, but definitely worth thinking about. Thank you, Chris.